I'm going to be 100% frank with you. This is a filler video. No, don't jump away. I promise it's a cool video, but it's not the video we had planned to produce for today. See, we've just got back from Southern California where we were driving the 2027 Chevrolet Bolt. Now, as you may or may not know, when you go on a press launch event, usually automakers go, okay, you're not allowed to release your drive impressions until a particular day at a particular time. And originally, GM had planned for the embargo to be lifted on Thursday this week. That would be now, if you're watching this on Thursday, the day it's published to our mainstream audience. Now, if you are a Patreon supporter, you may have had a sneaky look at this video on Wednesday evening, in which case, congratulations and thank you for being a Patreon supporter. I want to note, though, that even you would have had to have waited until Thursday had the original embargo date stayed in place. But after feedback from ourselves and many other journalists at the drive event, GM went, you know what, we're going to push the embargo back. We're going to push the embargo back to Monday next week. So Vi is at home right now, busily editing that video and our first drive impressions. I cannot share any of my first drive impressions with you at this time. You'll have to wait until Monday when that video will, fingers crossed, drop for everyone to watch. So in the meantime, this is very much a filler video because we didn't think that we would have to need a video for today. We thought we'd already got that planned and it was already in process. Kate has been busy working on some very deep technical videos. So we're having a bit of a Nikki has new toys to play with video. Yeah, this is a light switch. It might look really boring, but it's part of something that I've wanted to do to my F150 Lightning for some time. So, fleet update time. Before I get to the meat and potatoes of this video, which involves me replacing my F150 Lightning's light switch with one that has fog light buttons, yay, fog lights! Let's talk about this piece of electronic components that I am most definitely not frustrated with. All right, you know I've had a love-hate relationship with the Ford Charge Station Pro. It's made by Siemens and it is utter garbage. Let me say it again. This is the Ford Charge Station Pro. It came as standard with the 22 and 23 extended range battery pack F150 Lightnings, and it is utter and total garbage. Now, I have no problems with the F150 Lightning. I love my F150 Lightning. It is my favorite of the full-size electric pickup trucks. Yes, we use it very sparingly. We usually use the Chevrolet Bolt we have here at the house for everything. In fact, that was the vehicle that I took to the airport this week because it didn't have a lot of gear that we took with us to the 2027 Bolt EV launch drive. But when we do need to carry large amounts of stuff, we use the F-150 Lightning. It was involved in a little bit of an accident while we were down in California. Someone ran into the back of us. If you missed the video in which I explained that everything is fine, everything is fine. The hitch took all of the brunt of the impact. It kind of transferred it through the vehicle. Ford has said it's fine. We don't need to worry about getting anything repaired. And the only things that really were damaged in that collision was myself, Vi and Erin, all of whom have had bad backs and bad necks. As a consequence of whiplash, I'm probably doing better than the rest of the team, but hopefully recovery is ongoing. Let's leave it like that. But while I love my truck, I absolutely hate this charging station. It was made under contract by Siemens for Ford and it integrates with the Delta home integration system. It's badged as a Ford system, but it's made by Delta. And Delta's part of this home integration system has been absolutely rock freaking solid. Very few issues with it. As long as the Charge Station Pro works, the Delta system has worked flawlessly. However, this is yet again on the fritz. And if you watch this channel, you know I've had this love-hate relationship with it. I've even talked about doing reverse engineering and trying to just wrench control away and just be able to tell the truck to turn the battery on so we can, power the home. A couple of months back now, or maybe a month and a half ago, I had a conversation over the phone with one of Ford's team, and they got me to get it reset. It worked for approximately half a day, maybe a day and a half, and then it dropped off the network again. So I've had it reset yet again, and now the Wi-Fi won't come online. It won't allow me to connect to it. If it does come online and I can successfully connect to it, I get errors in my smartphone app saying it's not the correct station or the correct ID or some other random error. And I've had enough. I genuinely, at this event I was with Chevy over the Monday and Tuesday this week, I actually said, hey, I would love it if you'd actually start selling the charging station portion of your energy management system to Ford owners, because this is so terrible. The rest of the system is fine. The truck is fine. It's just, this is the weakest link. Please, can we just replace it with something, anything that allows two-way power transfer? And I know there's going to be lots of people screaming and shouting and dancing with joy in the comments about how I'm so stupid. Well, you know what? Every product has problems, and unfortunately, I've been saddled with this particular problem. I paid for it with my own money. There are better vehicle-to-home solutions out there, and you can bet that I am actively looking to get a replacement because I've had enough of this system. Now, Ford has said they're going to probably send another engineer out and we'll maybe get another system replaced, but this will be the last time. I've had enough. I'm going to tell them this is their last chance to fix it, because we've had multiple power cuts. And because I've reset the station, every time I reset the station, the truck and the station need to be repaired. And if I can't access the station using my smartphone app, I can't pair it with the truck, because you have to start by pairing it with your smartphone. And then in the smartphone app, you have to tell it to pair to the truck. And if you can't initiate that pairing process, the truck doesn't know to pair, the station doesn't know to pair, and it is just an utter nightmare. But I've taken up way too much time. Let's talk about the fun things, which is front fog lights. I grew up in the UK, and I grew up in a part of the UK called East Anglia, specifically a part of East Anglia called the Waveney Valley. That's where the counties of Norfolk and Suffolk join together. And there is a bunch of marshland, lots of water. It's near the coast. And just down the road from where I used to live was a town called Blunderston, or rather a village called Blunderston, that actually inspired some of Charles Dickens' books and focused on the fog in those books. I grew up in a place where fog was not only expected, it was a part of everyday life at certain parts of the year. And I'm not just talking about poor visibility. I'm talking about thick pea supers where you couldn't see in front of your face. And growing up in that environment, fog lights became a must-have for pretty much everyone's car. When I was born, fog lights weren't mandatory. They were optional extras. And if you had a very expensive car, you might have had them with factory fogs as standard, but everyone else, they could either add them or they could put them on later. And in the UK, eventually rear fog lights became mandatory. Front fog lights, even to this day, as far as I'm aware, are optional extras that you can pay to have. But everyone, if they've had a car made in the last 20 years or so, fog lights are mandatory. And if your fog lights don't work, you can actually fail your MOT. That's your roadworthiness test. So it's a big deal. And the idea is that rear fog lights illuminate the rear of your vehicle, or rather mark where the rear of your vehicle is in thick fog. They're brighter than normal tail lights, and they are designed to cut through thick pea super fog. And honestly, they're really, really useful, because if you're following along a busy high-speed road and you see a fog light of the vehicle in front, you know how far away you are from them, and it can dramatically reduce the number of rear-end collisions that exist. Now, here in North America, for whatever reason, rear fog lights are treated with suspicion and or disdain, but front fog lights are fairly common. And front fog lights obviously are, instead of giving rear following drivers the chance to know where you are designed to illuminate the road ahead of your vehicle so that you can see more clearly. Now, I'm not going to lie, I think the American driving test in most states is a bit of a joke. I also think that most Americans don't seem to understand how to effectively use dipped headlights, full headlights, and whatever other blindingly bright lights they happen to have on their vehicle. But if you live in certain parts of the US, fog is a thing here too. And up here in the foothills of the Coast Range in Oregon, fog lights are kind of useful. I've had some press vehicles with front fog lights on and rear fog lights, and I've wanted to put fog lights on my F-150 Lightning for some time. Now, the ICE version of the F-150 Lightning, you can actually spec it with front fog lights. Depending on the trim level you pick, you can actually get it from the factory with front fog lights. If you have a Raptor, if you have some of the higher performance versions of the F-150, you also get extra fog lights. You get like quad fog lights instead of just the front two. But the Lightning doesn't have that. And I've been looking through the F-150 Lightning forums, and lots of people have been toying with the idea of putting front fogs on. And some people have, hiding them at the front of the vehicle's grille, down where the active air dam is. You can hide some front fogs in there. And it's my goal to source and install front fogs that look as stock and as factory as possible, while also having a stock factory light. Now, this is the light cluster on the F-150 Lightning. It's got a button here to allow you to activate your zone lighting. I've got some zone lighting controls up there. It's slightly different between model years. So this is the style that they had in the 22 and 23 model year trucks. This is a 23 Lariat. For 24 and later, they actually changed the switch design slightly. But then you've got your automatic light control button here, which is what that little was about there. And you've also got your illumination control. Now, I went online and I did some digging on various parts forums or parts sites, and I found this. This is a light control module from, I believe, a Ford Explorer. If I hold the two up, you'll see that they are about the same size and shape. The only difference is that instead of having a button here to activate your zone lighting control, you have a button here to open your tailgate. The buttons themselves are what we would call just plain old, I don't want to use the word dumb, but I can't think of, they're unintelligent buttons. How about that? The car itself interprets the switch button press and then figures out what you're wanting to do with it. So we can actually use this switch as is, but I want to use the right icon on my switch. So I'm going to be switching out this button and this button. I'm also going to be removing this and putting this switch in. Now, in order to get everything working, you have to go into an app I've talked about before called FORScan. That's FORScan. And you have to go in and tweak some of the settings in the vehicle to tell it that you're enabling front and rear fogs. Now, I've done that prior to making this video, and I've gone through a spreadsheet. I'll link to it in the description that has all of the different values. Generally, you shouldn't just go through and willy-nilly change things. I did do some significant research beforehand, and I have already checked that the front fog switch, if you press it, it will illuminate on the dashboard a telltale to let you know that the front fogs are enabled. Now, of course, at this particular point, I haven't got any front fogs wired in. That's the next stage of this video. And because we needed a video for today, I was like, hey, let's do this as like a part one, and we can make a part two a little bit further down the line. Unfortunately, the rear fog light, while I have turned on the telltale on the dashboard, so theoretically, if I press that, it should illuminate. I think there might be a wiring difference between this switch and the loom on the vehicle. I have the factory manual for this vehicle, and I'm going to be going through that with a fine-toothed comb to figure out which one of these pins on the back corresponds to the rear fog light switch. And once I've figured that out, I'll be able to enable the rear light switch. So enough talking, let's take this out. If you look at the factory manual, it goes through a whole rigmarole process of removing this that involves removing the lower fascia here and then removing a side panel. But actually, it's super easy if you've got nails. Just gently get your fingers underneath, very gently pry forwards. Obviously, make sure your vehicle is off before you do this. And then you've got a little catch here that you just remove that. And then we can remove this switch and put it on the new one. Luckily, it's pretty easy to take this switch and put it on here. And you can either use a spludger or a nice small flathead screwdriver. And you're just going to very gently pry off this front fascia here. There are 3 clips on either side. So front. You have to be careful because the plastic is kind of brittle, but there we go, that's one side done. And then we're going to repeat the same on the other side, like so. Then you can remove that front fascia clip there, and you can see that this switch is actually a separate module. There is space on the other side of this unit for another switch, although this one doesn't have any populated sockets on the motherboard. But some of the Ford switches have a button on this side and a button on this side for different vehicles. And, you know, it's fairly common in the automotive world today for automakers to try and reuse as many of the parts for a vehicle as they possibly can. So if you look on Ford's parts website, there are about a dozen different switches that are all based on this same physical modular design, but they all have slightly different buttons. They all have slightly different switch artwork. And obviously, as you can see for this one, because this is designed for an SUV, it's got a hatch opening button. It will work, but I would rather it have the proper zone lighting button. So let's take this switch off. And for that, you're going to basically repeat what you did with the front, but with these. So again, very gently. I did try this earlier with a spludger, but the spludger didn't want to get underneath. So you need to have something a bit smaller than a spludger, and then come around on this side. And I'll link to the part number that I used on my preferred parts supplier. Obviously, if you just want to do front fogs, you could buy a version of this light switch without the bottom, without the rear fog switch. But you can see here, there are just pins here to receive a switch. And then what I'm going to do is take this switch off and put it on the new housing. Same kind of thing, same kind of rule. Really gently, just pry those clips off. And on this side, I'll do the same thing, like so. Whoops. Come on. There we go. So now this switch has been removed. We can put the correct switch, this one, in the correct housing, this one. And we're going to just pop this on like so. Make sure it's flat and square, and then just push it home and you should get that lovely clicking sound. And then we're just going to replace this front faceplate and it should just clip in, and now it's ready to go in the truck. Obviously, installation is the reverse of removal. Just clip it back in, push it back into place, and then turn your vehicle on. And then you have all of your usual lighting controls here. It defaults to automatic light switch, which is standard for the F150 Lightning. You can also, if you set the lights to dipped, you can also activate your front fogs, and we get the green front fog telltale on the dash. For some reason right now, as I said earlier, the rear fog switch doesn't work, and I'm gonna have to have a little bit of a play with that. So there you have it. I admittedly have only just installed the switch thus far. I need to do the wiring for the front fogs. I probably need to run wires from the BCM, the body control module, from that all the way down through some relays and then fit front fogs. But the first part of the challenge has been successfully completed. As I said earlier, the rear fogs, they're going to be a little bit harder. I'm probably going to spend a couple of evenings with the factory manual to figure out just how I'm going to get the switch to tell the truck that it's been deployed. It's very different to the old-fashioned way of doing things when you literally just ran wires from one part of your vehicle to a switch on your cluster and then to whatever the thing is that you need to turn on. Today, with CAN bus, with electronics components, with computers everywhere, it's a little bit more in depth, but I do want to keep a stock finish, or at least close to stock, using OEM parts and using wherever possible OEM-like components. And if I can't get the rear fogs to work through the light switch in the way I want them to, then I will figure out a way of doing it. Do not worry. In the interim, I hope that you will consider supporting the channel. You can do so from as little as $1.50 a month. The list of amazing supporters scrolling by on either side of me right now are the folks that have made videos like this possible. I really enjoy kind of getting my hands dirty and doing these kind of vehicle workshop-esque videos. Sometimes they can be a bit of a pain in the butt to do. Sometimes it's fun. Sometimes, as in today, it's just something we can brush off pretty quickly and then get back to producing other content. I know many people have asked what's happened to the rest of the Chevrolet Bolt EV videos that we've been working on. Don't worry, there will be more in that series. We probably need to replace the roof bars at some point. Financially, I'm a little bit constrained right now, so that's going to have to wait. I actually ordered that light switch, I think in November, and it's literally only just arrived because the parts supply chain thing is all over the place right now. Thanks, tariffs. That's all I'm going to say on that. And we're also going to be carrying on our work with the Vectrex VX1. I know the progress on that has been super glacial, and that's because during the Thanksgiving and Christmas holidays, I spent a lot of time learning how to make the parts that I needed to put on my bike to make that battery upgrade possible. Unfortunately, in order to finish making the parts that I need to fabricate and then plate so that they are electrically plated so that they don't corrode, I also had to learn how to make various adapter plates and vices for my Carvera Air so we could then make it. And Vi joked that if only we had a lathe, it would have been possible for us to rustle off those parts in like an hour. I know it's taken a long time. I know, don't hate on me for it. It will happen. I promise. In the meantime, make sure that you've hit subscribe. As I said, please consider supporting us from $1.50 a month on Patreon. You can send us Ko-fi, you can send us an old-fashioned check if that is more your thing. Tell your friends, families, and mortal enemies about the channel. I'm sure they'll get a kick out of it. And we'll be back soon with more content. As I alluded to earlier, on Monday, there's going to be a first drive review of the Chevrolet Bolt EV for 2027. I cannot say any more than that. My lips are sealed until that day, and that embargo passes. We take our embargoes very, very safely and strictly. Until then, stay safe, be the awesome change that you know you want in the world, and I will see you soon. Keep evolving.